What's going on, everyone? My name is Jermaine Robertson. I am with the Robertson team at AZ & Associates Real Estate Group. We're going to have a special guest that's going to be discussing some topics related to what's going on in the market and in the industry right now. As many of you may know, the real estate market is in a somewhat of a weird peril, right? We have a shortage of inventory, but yet we have a lot of things that are really kind of affecting the infrastructure of real estate. Things that we've talked about a lot on social media in terms of inflation, in terms of interest rates. A lot of terminology is being thrown around right now that people are just not familiar with. And that made it a perfect opportunity to bring in somebody who could take some of the noise that's going around in terms of the rhetoric and really kind of compress it and make sense out of it. There's a lot of conversation about wealth gaps happening. And so we need to turn to an expert in times of need to be able to find out how can we pull resources? How can we actually get a game plan together with the things that we have? So it's my pleasure to introduce our guest, Ignatius Jackson. He is a veteran of 10 years. He is a local guy, local to Phoenix, Arizona. He is an ASU graduate, CPA, handles any type of tax-related issues that most of us can think of on a fairly standard level. He's been doing this 10 years and great guy. He understands his business well. So I think we have somebody really good here to maybe shed some light on some of the questions that are coming up fairly frequently with our clients and our customers. So without no further ado, we're going to go ahead and introduce Ignatius Jackson and welcome him in. Thanks for coming in, Ignatius.
Thank you, Jermaine, for having me. But no, happy to be here. This is actually a pretty important topic. Tax strategies for real estate investors and just business owners in general is always important and something that we need to definitely pay attention to. It's often an afterthought for a lot of people, and that's usually where they come to me at the end of the day. And sometimes I have to just throw my hands up and say, sorry, nothing I can do. You should have came to me before the year ended and actually did some true planning. And so I'll just kind of beat to the punchline, although we're going to talk about a few topics throughout this interview. One of the things that I just want to say is there comes a point where the DIY scenario when it comes to your taxes is not going to work for you. If you're not happy with your tax bill, guess what? You have to pay someone that knows what they're talking about to give you good advice and to make sure you're paying as little as possible. So, don't be afraid to spend a little bit of dollars to save yourself thousands of dollars. So to me, from my perspective, if my clients aren't saving thousands of dollars on their taxes, I'm not doing my job and they shouldn't be paying me. And so usually when I take on a client, that's one of the first things that I try to do is I say, okay, here's what you're currently doing. Here's what we could potentially save you based on a couple things that I'm just thinking about off the top of my head. If you like those numbers, then you shouldn't bat an eye at the fees that we're charging. And so to kind of get to the punchline, just be cognizant of the fact that you guys do have to not make this so much on the back burner. Obviously, you got to make money first, right? But you also have to consider the accounting and the tax implications of what you're doing. So like he said, I'm native of Phoenix. I've been here for some time, my whole life. And proud to be a member of the community. One of my passions in life and why I do what I do and why I have my CPA firm is I want to bridge the equity gap that we have in this country. The wealth gap that we have in this country. Is equity and wealth, I guess you could say. It is what it is. But wealth gap is mostly what I'm concerned with trying to bridge. And so I want to do what I can to help people to accumulate wealth from a generational perspective and just from a current family perspective, and get to a point where they're comfortable and especially able to retire comfortably. That's ultimately kind of the goal that you should have. And owning a business is one of the best ways to do that. So that's what I do. Obviously, I am a CPA licensed in the state of Arizona. And we do business taxes as well as real estate investors' tax returns. So as well as self-directed retirement accounting and tax return related items. So it's a little bit about myself.
Yeah.
I don't know what else you want me to chat about, Mr. Roberson.
Absolutely. Hey, appreciate you for kind of letting everybody know exactly, specifically what it is that you do. And the fact that of the wealth gap, that is a real thing. I don't think a lot of people really understand. And without trying to complicate the conversation, the wealth gap pretty much it means that the possibilities of people being able to afford the higher end or a better way of living is typically, it's slipping away a little bit right now, right? Wouldn't you say with the way inflation is going and just kind of in general how the government is really running? And I know that's not really on topic, but a wealth gap is definitely a relevant situation to people's finances, and exactly the reason why they need somebody like you. Given inflation is going up, which definitely takes away from people's bottom line, somebody who knows how to strategize taxes, put people in a better position, which is exactly where you're at. So I appreciate you for at least touching on that gap that is slowly widening between the haves and the have-nots.
Absolutely, yeah. Happy to do that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it is one of those things that is going to continue to get worse as inflation increases. So more and more of the middle class basically is becoming in poverty just because of the cost of living increases and, not even be able to afford rent in some cases. I mean, you're going to see more and more people that are going to need Section 8 in the near future because all the landlords are increasing their rents super high. I'm not sad to say that I'm one of those people. I'm a landlord, and if it's all pure economics. I mean, we want to get the most rent we can for our properties, and so it's just the way that it's the way that capitalism works, right? Definitely want to encourage people to take, instead of complaining about a lot of the stuff that's out there, take more advantage of the stuff that's out there. Take the opportunities to learn about what you can do for yourself by either owning real estate or owning a business or whatnot. It doesn't always require a lot of money to do those things. You can always partner with somebody who has money, and maybe you do the legwork, and that's your contribution to the partnership or something to that extent. So there's always ways you can get around stuff and structure things to get to where you want to be, but you just have to take that leap of faith and just keep the faith alive, I guess. Hashtag pay yourself first, by the way. It's one of my great sayings that I love.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on a lot of really good things. One is partnering with other people in order to grow your business. Obviously, some of the biggest wealth strategists agree with those exact same things. A lot of the hedge funds, a lot of these different corporations, these big corporations that are really kind of widening that wealth gap, are taking advantage in groups of the funding and the money that's out there and that's available for them right now. And you point on something, I think that was like a take from like, I want to say John F. Kennedy, where he said, don't ask your country what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country? And even taking that so much, I think that allows us to go into the topic at hand, which was how can people start to leverage themselves? Important that you get familiar with the terminology that's going on when the government says things like transitory or they say inflation, to know and understand what that means to you, especially with home values going up and then the cost of living going up and then people's pay is not really going up to keep up with that. How would you suggest somebody actually structure themselves to use those resources in a responsible way to further themselves or get themselves further ahead in life?
Yeah, great question. And I will first say that anyone who tells you that this inflation is transitory is off their rocker. So
I agree.
If you hear that from anybody, don't listen to them. That's craziness. Anyways, yeah. So how can you take advantage of some stuff? So we talked about one of the things, obviously, which is partnering up with people, but you can also partner up with your retirement account. So let's say that you have I don't know, $100,000 sitting in a 401k or an IRA or something like that from a previous employer. And so this doesn't really work that well when you're still with your current employer, but you can definitely do this if you have some funds from a previous employer by pushing those over into a self-directed IRA, or if you own a business, setting yourself up with a solo 401k. And basically you can utilize the funds from those accounts to actually go out and buy some real estate. And you could even partner with yourself and use some personal funds. But you just have to be careful. There's a lot of rules associated with that. It's kind of like next level advanced stuff. I'm actually having a class coming up here in the near future that is going to go through that a little bit more in detail, so you kind of understand how to do it. But ultimately, it's so powerful of a tool and a strategy. The one thing I would encourage you not to do is don't pull the money out of your retirement account, especially if you're below 59 and a half years old, because there's way too much penalties and potentially taxes, depending on what type of account it is, for doing that. So as much as possible, leave the money in the account, let it continue to grow tax deferred or tax free, depending on if it's pre-tax or Roth, and get yourself to a higher retirement account, So one of the things I will say is a lot of people are afraid or just don't think that it makes sense to self-direct their retirement accounts. I actually have another t-shirt that says that very same thing. And let me just tell you this. I would rather invest my money in a semi-retirement account in something that I know and understand. Okay. So if you don't know and understand the stock market, why in the heck are you investing your money in that? See what I'm saying? So if you're a real estate agent or you're involved in real estate, you've done flips, you've done this and that, and you know a lot about the real estate industry, why would you not invest your retirement accounts in the same thing that you know a lot about already? Because you're looking at deals all the time anyways. And the returns are typically, depending on where you're at, going to at least meet or exceed what you're going to get in the stock market. If we look at a 30-year history of real estate, okay, compared to the stock market, real estate has beaten the stock market hands down over a 30-year time period. Okay. And the main reason is there's very few time periods where real estate is taking a dip. And when it does take a dip, it's usually not too big of a dip. So it usually rebounds just a lot faster. And in this inflation, this super high inflationary period that we're in right now, it's just going to keep going up and up and up. It's, no one knows for sure what's going to happen with the real estate values, but one thing I can tell you for sure is going to happen is the rents are going to keep going up. So if you are afraid of being a landlord, I'm telling you, you're probably missing out. Just because you're a landlord doesn't mean you have to put a lot of work into it. You can always hire someone who wants to do that as their full-time job as a property manager or whatever to help manage the property for you if you wanted to, and you can still make a good profit. So that's all I would just say is, there's always the ability to use, there's so many different ways you can get involved in the real estate field. It's not just, having to have a bunch of cash in the bank. If you have cash in your retirement accounts, you can use that. If you have someone in your family that has cash, you can partner up with them. If you have a friend of yours that that has cash and wants to get into real estate, but they just don't have time to actually do anything with it, and you want to be more of a sweat equity partner versus a financial partner, you can do that as well. So you just have to kind of think outside the box a little bit about how you want to structure it. And there's plenty of people out there. There's so much money out there. You'll be able to figure some of that.
Yeah, over $2 trillion. So I was reading an article today, and I want to say that they were looking at consumer debt, and half of that consisted of most people's mortgage loans, somewhere in 25. I don't know if it was trillions or billions, but 25 was the magic number for consumer debt, and the majority of that coming in the form of residential properties, either your mortgage or if you're floating investment properties, whatever the case may be. What we're coming across is a lot of people are having questions about, okay, if I pull out of we'll go, for instance, we have a client right now that's looking to borrow money from their 401k in the retirement age area, more than willing, ready to purchase their their final home, and they have a concern about whether it's a good idea to take a draw on that or wait for the sale of their property to happen. If you ran across somebody and they said, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this," how would you advise them in terms of using retirement or some type of investment fund in their, let's say they're in that 50, that 59 and a half and up age?
Yeah. So, I mean, even if you're in the 59 and a half, if you're above 59 and a half, so that there's no penalty, if it's a pre-tax account, you're still paying taxes on it. If you take a distribution. Okay. Now, I guess from my standpoint, if you're going to live in the home, you cannot partner up with your retirement account in that situation. So you only have two options that are left available to you if you really do need to use the funds in the retirement account in order to purchase the home for like a down payment or whatnot. Is you would typically need to either do a loan if you're still employed with whoever the 401k is with. You can typically do a loan from that account, or you can take a distribution from the account. Now, the loan component won't result in taxes to you, but the distribution would, unless you have not used a 60-day rollover in a 12-month period, in which case you can actually put the money back. So let's say you have a house that is that you're waiting to close, and you found another house already, and you just kind of need the funds temporarily until the other house closes, and you can actually put it back in. As long as you can get that done within 60 days, then you actually could avoid the taxes in that situation as well. So, and let me just clarify just one thing, people, I do have to say this, unfortunately, from a legal standpoint. Nothing that I'm saying here is advice. Jermaine mentioned, what advice would I give? I can't actually give advice on a YouTube video or whatnot here. So if you do really want to understand your particular situation, you would need to make sure you schedule some time with myself or your own CPA or whoever you work with to actually discuss your situation, to protect yourself in case something was to happen online. But with those basic facts that you gave me, those are kind of some options that are available to you to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like you said, and I usually reiterate the fact that we're just simply having a conversation about possibilities. It is, everybody's situation is different. It is always advised that you get consultation from your own tax advisor. Obviously, Ignatius is definitely more than capable of answering any of your questions, and we'll make sure to leave all of his contact information so that if you want to get a hold of him, that would definitely be an option for you. But Ignatius, you pointed out something. You really touched on maybe some loopholes that people didn't consider. And one thing I'm learning just from a human standpoint, people are very they're very they're not going to move a whole lot if they don't have the information, if they don't know where to get the information. A lot of people will just stay still, and having access to something in a retirement account, but knowing how to utilize it to propel you forward, right, is beneficial. And so if you didn't say anything, you said a lot when you specifically said, okay, listen, if you're going to pull money out of your account and you're going to loan it, you have a specific amount of time to get that money back. Or if you're going to do a distribution, you have an opportunity to get that back into the account without suffering the penalties. Now, does that apply to anybody or any age range?
Yeah. Well, excuse me. There does become a level, I believe it's about 72 years old, where you can't actually continue to contribute to an IRA anymore. I'd have to double check that. Don't hold me to that figure off the top of my head. I don't come up with that. I don't get that question too often. But yeah, there is a age limit where you can actually no longer contribute. So, you have to keep that in mind and factor that into your scenario as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the majority of the clients, I mean, we may deal with one or two that are in that age category, but more so our demographics is anywhere between the 30 up to the 60, maybe 70 year range is what we're looking at in terms of our clients. And they have a lot of questions and they have a lot of concerns. I think we kind of touched on a lot of things. Ignatius, if you just kind of, if you had to just imparting, if you had to give somebody some, if you were structuring things and structuring the individual to empower themselves to move in a good direction, obviously we know there's a couple things that you should pay for that are valuable to sustaining financial leverage. One is a CPA, somebody who can handle the accounting, an attorney, obviously say a realtor. These are people that you should obviously have inside of your corner. But in order for an individual to leverage themselves financially, especially given everything that we're going through right now, inflation, we haven't seen inflation like this. I think the last time we had an inflation strike was somewhere around the late 70s, early 80s. So yes, it wasn't even
40 years. Yeah.
When was
40
it?
years. This is the highest inflation in 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say it was like right before my time, before I even came into existence. And, just from hearing a lot of different analysts, I don't really think anybody knows what to do with it. And that's fine. I think we can all agree there's a lot of people becoming very prosperous right now. And there's also a lot of people that are not becoming prosperous right now. And I think that's a decision that people are making based on the level of information that they have. So if you were to impart something in closing, what would you impart to anybody watching this of, how can you empower yourself at this day and age with all the different unknowns and factors going on to improve their financial situation so they're not just another, victim or somebody who feels like they need to complain or kick and scream to get out of their situation?
Yeah, no, great question. And let me just say, first of all, one of the things, because you talked about your forever home, this is something that I always try to discuss with a lot of my clients. I don't believe in overpaying for a primary residence. It actually is doing the exact inverse of what you want to do if you're trying to really build wealth and accumulate financial freedom for yourself. Your residence, you'll never be able to really access that with the exception of getting more debt on it or selling the property. Okay, there's always going to be some equity in that that's going to just be sitting there. So what I would say is get yourself a more modest personal residence. I mean, look at Warren Buffett, for crying out loud. He lives in the same place that cost him like a couple $100,000 or $100,000, I think, maybe even back several years ago, several decades ago, I think, at this point. So, you don't need a massive house to, it's going to only hurt you from getting to your point faster and the breadth that you're able to go in terms of your growth by overspending on something that doesn't make you more money. Okay. So that's the first thing I'll say. And that's not just your house. That's everything, people. There's so many things that Americans spend money on that does not bring them money back. And that's ultimately what ruins your ability to accumulate wealth, potentially even retire without having to work. Okay. Is because you're not doing enough saving and investing. Okay. So investing, how do you want to invest? Two primary ways you want to invest, either in real estate or in the business. Okay. The reason I say that is both of those scenarios are both efficient from a earnings perspective in terms of growth and also from a tax standpoint. Okay. So business and real estate, you start to be able to write off your personal, what could be considered personal expenses, right? Normally, if you're a W-2 employee, you get to write off some of those items into your business or into your real estate investment activities. All right. And it starts to reduce your income that you're earning to where you're paying less in taxes, but you're still having good cash flow and you're still spending a lot of the same money you're spending anyways. But instead of it being a non-deductible expense, something that doesn't really give you any benefit, it's starting to actually give you a little bit of a benefit towards your future. Okay. And it's also going to help you if you do one of those two things, having a business or doing real estate, it's also going to bring cash flow to you and it's going to build your wealth and you're going to basically be paying yourself first, which is a very cool mantra that I like to subscribe to. Hashtag pay yourself first. You start to put money into retirement accounts, you start to put money into Roth IRA. There's so many powerful tools that are out there. But those are the two kind of just basic things, like get involved in those two areas as much as you can. If not both of them, at least do one of them. Have a business or have some real estate, do one or the other. But that's how you're really going to get there. The other thing I would say that I always like to say to everybody, please, please, please have a Roth IRA in your life. Okay. Even if you think you make too much, that's incorrect. There's ways to get money in there still. I have tons of different strategies that I can give you to get money into a Roth IRA, but having money in that type of an account is super powerful from a tax perspective. Okay. Let me put it to you this way. If you had put $10,000 into a Roth IRA when you're 20 years old, by the time you reach 50, you'll have $200,000 with an average annual return of 10%. If you make that average annual return 15%, you would have $800,000. And how much did you put in there? $10,000. So all that gain, the nice thing about Roth IRAs, all that gain is tax-free. There's no better way to save for your future than putting money into a Roth IRA or an HSA if you're eligible for an HSA, health savings account. Those are two really, really powerful accounts. You have to consider doing one of those two. That's going to get you to where you want to be long term. And those are some things that I just always like to mention before I end any interview.
Absolutely. Wow, powerful. He gave a wealth of information just in those closing remarks. And I'll sum it up. Change your mindset about the way that you see money and investing. Stick with what you know to be safe. Also, right now with inflation, making sure that your money is working for you, because what inflation is just think of inflation like a moth to your money. It pretty much eats up at it. So the more you hear the media and different syndicators talking about inflation going up, that is the amount of money that you stand to lose that is not invested. And again, Ignatius said something that really stood out to me that I think I want to drive home real quick before we end this, is that if you don't understand the stock market, we all need somewhere to live. We all need somewhere to live. And with the way real estate does perform, positioning yourself right there is not only a smart way to diversify your money into something that could potentially serve a couple different purposes. One, the biggest one, which is shelter over your head, or an income stream if you want to pick up an investment property. So great nuggets, great information. Ignatius, thank you for showing up. Thank you for coming in. You can go to YouTube. Ignatius has a channel, Ignatius L. Jackson CPA on YouTube. And then I believe on Instagram, it's Ignatius CPA on Instagram. You can follow him. And then if you want, Ignatius, please let them know where else they can contact you and what you have going on and when it's going on and newsletters. And please just let us know how we can stay in contact.
Yeah. So if you want to sign up for our newsletter, you can go to iljcpa.com and you can sign up on there. You could also just shoot us the email if you wanted to. The email address is on the website. Okay. I won't try to spell that out here. Or you can give us a call at 480-542-0404. So 480-542-0404. You can ask for either myself or Tammy, and we'll get you kind of a little intake questionnaire. And then once we go through that, we can kind of see how we can help you out. You can also just directly schedule a consultation if you wanted to through the website as well. There's a link to schedule a consultation directly with me. And so, yeah, that's how you can get a hold of us.
Great information. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for tuning in. I hope this served its purpose of giving you additional information to help you power your way through these economic times and get you to where you want to go, which is ultimately in a financial stable position for you, for your family, and for the many to come behind you. This is a great time to make a move, contrary to what everybody else is saying. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.